In the Middle East, the United States government is again reverting to old ways where they're seeking the unattainable, where they're pursuing the militarily unachievable outcomes and objectives, ostensibly in the name of American security or defending our ally Israel. But all we're doing is setting the stage for even more disaster. Very many times Trump, since he's come in, has done things that makes a lot of sense, that pushes against the tides of war. I gave him credit last week when he was in Saudi Arabia, when he made that speech talking about how the disaster of nation building and those who interventionists want to always go in all this place and try to make things better or think that we can tell them how to do their business better than they can do, et cetera. I gave him credit for that because those are good instincts as long as the words matched up with it. But then here we're running into smack dab into some reality, and already those words are starting to crack a little bit. And it's time we have to examine the good and the bad, and especially when we're trying to talk about things that are good for America or highlight things that can potentially be bad for our country. Let's start in the Middle East, first of all, with the situation with Iran. Steve Witkoff was on U.S. television yesterday, talked about a number of things with the Middle East and with the Russia-Ukraine war, with the phone call that Putin was going to have with Trump that happened a little earlier today. But I want to zero in on something he said, first of all, about Iran.
We have one very, very clear red line, and that is enrichment. We cannot allow even 1% of an enrichment capability. We've delivered a proposal to the Iranians that we think addresses some of this without disrespecting them. And so that's important. We want to get to a solution here, and we think that we will be able to. But everything begins from our standpoint, John, with a deal that does not include enrichment. We cannot have that because enrichment enables weaponization, and we will not allow a bomb to get here.
Okay, so obviously Trump has been saying ad nauseum since he's gotten to office that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. That's been his go-to line. He said it several times on his last Middle Eastern trip the other day. He said it during that speech in Saudi Arabia. But the goalposts have been changing a little bit. You may recall, I want to say it was the 1st of April. It could have been in the latter part of March. We showed it here on this channel where Steve Witkoff came in. It was on Fox News, and he had just gotten back from one of his trips to Iran, and he was very optimistic and said, yeah, look, they don't need to reprocess anything over 3.67% anyway. That's all you need for a civilian process, and so they don't need anything more than that. Well, that came under a lot of hot water from a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of Israel supporters the next day. And Trump apparently got a lot of heat from that. And then Witkoff came back and said, well, there actually wouldn't be any reprocessing. Now then he's taken it one step further and said it's actually a red line. Now, that is always a dangerous thing because you may recall that President Obama once said if any chemical weapons were used in Syria during his time in office, that would be a red line. And then all of a sudden, chemical weapons were used. It's still debated who actually used them, but nevertheless, they were employed. And now then he was put up to, all right, you said it was a red line and you're going to take action. Are you going to do it? He ended up not doing it. Now, that was the right call. The last thing we should have done is taken a chance to get into a war with Syria. But the point being, you don't want to put yourself in a box like that. Now Trump has put himself in that same box because he said that the reprocessing in any capacity is a red line. And he's now saying that not just they can't have a nuclear weapon, but now also specifically they can't even have reprocessing processed. That's running into a couple of big problems. Number one, there is no international law against that. It is completely within the NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They can have it. It is allowed. It is agreed to. So we don't have any standing to tell them you're not going to have that or we're going to bomb you. And if Trump gets himself into a position where he says that, now all of a sudden he's got some real problems across the board because you have the issue with Russia. Russia is now an ally of Iran. Not likely that they would sit passively by and allow a U.S. and Israeli strike to decapitate the Iranian regime and possibly turn it upside down, which would put everything that the Russians are doing at risk. Iran is also a member of BRICS. Iran is also given lots of oil to the Chinese regime. They're not going to be very keen on just having that vanish overnight or have another American-friendly regime that's been installed inside there. So they're not likely to sit passively by either. What either of those two great powers would do is unknown. They've been very coy about listening to what they would say, but it doesn't seem like a good bet to just say they would be passive and say, sure, do whatever you want, destroy one of our members of our signature economic group, the BRICS, or our military alliance here, or our free supply of oil, which could put at risk whether that oil would continue on to us, et cetera. Seems unlikely to do that. Then you have the issue of our own law. There is absolutely nothing in the U.S. Constitution or the 1973 War Powers Acts which in any way, shape, or form would authorize the President of the United States to take military action against another sovereign power, however much you don't like them, however much you don't want them to have the possibility of having a nuclear program later. It would violate international law. It would violate American law. And we dare not do that. And if you don't care about law, then there's also the whether or not it would succeed. And there's been a lot of talk here in recent days, and a lot of experts are going on saying, listen, I think I saw Robert Gates the other day admitted, Robert Gates, former Secretary of Defense for the United States, said they have built these things, their facilities so far into mountains and so far deep that even some of our best bunker busters won't be able to penetrate all the way through there. We could blow up lots of stuff. There's no doubt about it. But Iran also has more air defenses than I think people are giving them credit for. It's likely anyway. It hasn't been tested, but it's entirely possible that we could lose some B-2 bombers or some F-35s. Or some of our other aircraft, F-16s, anything else, something that Israel would send up there. If we think that we're going to go in there and, have a shock and awe kind of thing where you knock out all of the air defense systems and then come in with the strike package, that's how it'll work on paper. But whether that works on real life is a question that we don't know the answer to. And it is entirely possible that Russia would be giving Iran some advanced S-400 air defense systems. There's been some rumors on Telegram channels that they've actually given them some S-500s as well. I don't know. I don't know anybody knows outside of a classified environment. But I'm telling you that it would be far, far worse than anybody thinks. And then, of course, once you light the fire, rather, of a war against Iran, now then you put all those American troops that are in the Middle East at risk. You put American allies at risk. You put the Strait of Hormuz and all the flow of oil that goes through there that powers the global economy at risk. All those kind of things. And we are worried about we're risking our arrogance saying, well, they wouldn't do that. I hear that a lot. They wouldn't shut down the Strait of Hormuz because that would cause them more. Maybe it would. But you're gambling, not even a risk. You're gambling that they wouldn't do that because it would be bad for you. So you're just saying that it wouldn't. We don't have enough thought through. Let's say you go in there and you strike, even if it's illegal for international law, even if it's a violates American law, would it work? And the question is, we don't know, but it's very possible that it wouldn't work. And it's also very possible that you cannot discount that could push Iran past the point to where they would now have no reason to withhold anything. They would kick out all the nuclear inspectors, and all of a sudden we may see a bomb test the other day, someday after that. Now, what are you going to do? What are you going to do then? That's what I'm saying. We dare not go down this road. And by setting a red line, a statement, which is an escalated rhetorical statement from what we've been saying, that means that the risk of conflict is going up. And I assure you, that's how it's going to be viewed in Iran. Maybe they'll back down with this. I don't know. Steve Witkoff seems to think that they will. He seems to think there's room for negotiations. I hope that he's right. But I fear what may happen to our own troops, to peace in the region, and possibly even crossing a nuclear threshold because of our actions. And that's just the fact of it. And that's something we have to be very, very careful about. But we need to be aware that we're getting in risky territory when we start talking about red lines. Now, if that was all there was going on in the Middle East, it would only be troubling. But unfortunately, it's not the only thing going on. Even today, there's been additional news out of the Middle East, and that is Benjamin Netanyahu is now belatedly finally saying, okay, I'll give a little bit of food, I guess, to the Palestinian people because maybe it would be bad or something. The Washington Post is reporting today that Netanyahu says, quote, minimal aid will go to Gaza to preserve U.S. support. When you scroll up into the article a little bit there, Gary, if you could roll up to that second paragraph there, I just wanted to read this one part. In a video posted on social media, Netanyahu said that although Israel was deploying massive force to take control of all of the Gaza Strip, we cannot reach a point of starvation for practical and diplomatic responses. He said Israel's closest friends in the world, including the U.S., politicians told him that they were unwavering in their support, but he could not handle pictures of mass starvation. Not that they couldn't handle that happening on their watch, not that they are worried about people starving to death, but they're worried about the impression that it would read. That by itself is really troubling, because what you're saying is we don't really care about the human beings in Gaza. We just care about the images coming out. We just can't have that. So, of course, it's suppressed. You'll see hardly any images like the ones Gary's showing you here on any of the mainstream news, unfortunately. Very few of them. Some will show a little bit. I have seen some, so I'm grateful for that, but very little. And I've seen some very, very graphic images on X and on Telegram that are just grotesque and hard to watch. But I have forced myself at least a few times just to understand the level of destruction that's going on and the harm that's especially of the littlest ones here. These pictures of kids that have been killed is just, you just can't. I mean, it's beyond heartbreaking. Doesn't even come close to covering it. But that's what's going on right there. And we don't seem to be worried about the human cost, only about the political or diplomatic implications it may have for Benjamin Netanyahu. And then we had on that same interview where Witkoff was talking about the red line for Iran, he also talked about the situation with Gaza.
Everyone is concerned about the humanitarian conditions in Gaza. That said, it is a very complicated situation there. Logistically, I don't think there's any daylight between President Trump's position and Prime Minister Netanyahu's position. The issue now is, how do we logistically get all of those trucks into Gaza? How do we set up the aid stations? There are many initiatives that we're working on to address this.
Yeah, what alarms me the most about there, and then you're going to hear a comment from Marco Rubio here in a minute, is that he says that there is no daylight between Trump and Netanyahu. Folks, this is not something you want to have no daylight between you on. Those images that Gary was showing and some others that we can't show on here because we probably, the channel itself or the video would be taken down, so it's not going to do any of us any good for us to try, but believe me, you can Google it and you can find them out there, especially on X and Telegram. Why do you want to have no daylight between that? You should want a lot of daylight between that. You should want to say, I got nothing to do with you slaughtering these kids and to killing these people. And this objective that you have, which I have been telling you guys even before this channel existed, in every television interview I've done, especially in the first part of this, I said Benjamin Netanyahu is committing a military path here to try to achieve a political outcome that will not succeed for very practical reasons. He's going to end up doing is making more enemies for himself. He's already sown many, many seeds deep into the ground that probably won't come up for a long time and may even come up in phases going through time that will undermine Israel's security. The longer he goes down this path, the deeper and more of those seeds he plants that will come up as bitter fruit that future Israeli governments and future Israeli people will have to deal with. That's just how it is. I saw it work myself firsthand in some of my 4 combat deployments that I had, and certainly the things that I've studied, these particular issues here. Folks, you just can't kill 30,000 children, and I don't even know the actual number of women or innocent people who have been killed, and think that the males in the target population is not going to do whatever they can to get revenge. Right now, they're trapped inside of a fence. And they can't do anything except exist. They can't stop the bombs coming in. They can't fire anything back. I mean, they're virtually helpless. And I'm not talking about Hamas. I'm just talking about the men. Because it's so ironic. There's just so often we talk about how many of the Israeli side understandably wants revenge for what happened on 10/7 and some of the family members of those that were killed by some of these Palestinian people who escaped during the 10/7 atrocities and just started on a rampage and killed lots of innocent people in their homes and stuff. And we can say, well, we certainly understand that. And even the stories which have been thoroughly debunked about babies being baked in ovens and all this kind of stuff to try and heighten the emotion. But we still say we understand why they would want revenge for that or justice, etc. But then we can turn a blind eye completely and don't understand that hundreds of times over, the same dynamics are playing out in reverse. When you keep killing all these innocent people, you keep them trapped in there like animals, and then now you're starving them, many of them to death already. There are hundreds of thousands suffering from malnutrition. In many cases, even if the food aid opened all the way up today, many of them won't be able to survive this because the impact it's had will last the rest of their lives. That's what they see. That's what they're going to remember. And I promise you, under no scenario you can draw are the Palestinian people who survive going to be okay with a peace treaty and then just decide, forget about everything that happened and let's live a copacetic life that is easy for everybody in the West to exhibit. And that seems to be what our senior leaders think. Here is Marco Rubio talking on the same situation.
What the president is saying is he doesn't want to end the war until Hamas is defeated. This is a group that is a threat. If an ember survives, it will spark again into a fire. And that is the view of Hamas. There is no future. There can be no peaceful and prosperous Gaza as long as Hamas governs it by rule of arms. And that's a fundamental truth. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't some way that we can achieve that through a ceasefire and some peace mechanism. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here. Ending Hamas, ending its governance of Gaza, ending the conflict, freeing all of the hostages, including the bodies of those who have passed away and been killed and murdered by the Hamas terrorists, and then beginning the work of a future for Gaza and also of ensuring Israel's security. But in the absence of such agreement, we anticipate that Israel will continue forward with their operations, but that doesn't mean we stopped working on trying to achieve a peaceful outcome that also protects Israel's security and ends Hamas's governance of Gaza so that Gaza can have a free and prosperous future moving forward.
But where's the plan for that? A free and prosperous plan for the Palestinians? Where's any plan for that? All you've talked about is ending Hamas, because I don't know if he actually believes this or not, but he's saying it, so we can only go by that. This idea that if you get all the Hamas people and destroy them all, kill them all, every one of them that existed prior to 10/7, you are fantasizing and fooling yourself in the most egregious way possible. If you think that all the other men that you've been starving to death and killing their women and children are not going to be the same, that they'll simply rise up and take the place of the Hamas people that you've killed already. They may not even use the same title. The word Hamas may cease to exist in the lexicon, but there'll be 5 or 6 or 10 or 30 other ones that pop up, because they're not just going to sit there and just say, yes, do to us whatever you want. Have a plan that apparently the United States was looking at a week or so ago to get 1 million people to Libya. It's just to get them out of the way. I don't know what they would do with the rest of them, but apparently that's something that's in the works, and we're thinking that. And you heard Rubio again say there, just like Witkoff a second ago, this is for Israel's security. Well, what about the Palestinian people's security? There's 5 million of them there, including in the West Bank. And they're also under a tremendous pressure and stress, and all kinds of laws being broken there too, which doesn't hardly get any view at all in the West, because what little they have gets on the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. But if you want to achieve something, you're going to have to use different techniques. But right now we're not. Netanyahu is trying to achieve the unachievable with military power. He's trying to diplomatically accomplish something with military power that is not going to happen. And we keep talking about, we want to bring peace. We want to have a negotiated settlement. We want prosperity for possible. But what are we doing about it? You understand? We have the leverage. Netanyahu has embarked upon a new combat operation to go back in to totally secure the entire Gaza Strip. Here's how he put it, actually.
בסוף להגיע למצב שיש לנו אזור שנשלט כולו על ידי צה"ל, וכל האוכלוסייה האזרחית של עזה יכולה להגיע לשם ולקבל את הסיוע כשהחמאס לא מקבל כלום. זה חלק מהכרעת החמאס במקביל ללחץ הצבאי האדיר, הכניסה המסיבית שלנו, בעצם להשתלט על כל עזה ולהוריד את החמאס מכל היכולת לבזוז סיוע הומניטרי. זאת תוכנית המלחמה והניצחון.
So I don't know if you could read those words were kind of small on the screen there, but basically he's saying we're going to go in with this victory plan and we're going to control all the area, and then we're going to let all the civilian population come into one area, and then we're going to give them some food where Hamas can't get it. And again, I don't know how in God's earth he even has a theoretical possibility of knowing whether somebody's Hamas or not. I mean, it's not like they're going to be running around wearing, those green scarves or whatever, identifying them at this point. They're not going to do that, of course. Certainly not out in the open. So that's an impossible objective right there. So there is another unachievable thing. So then one has to wonder, is that even actually the plan? Or is he, like the Washington Post article said a minute ago, just saying things to keep America happy and to not lose our support, when really he has no interest in doing that because he doesn't want anybody to have any of the food. He wants them out. He wants that plan where they're going to Libya or God only knows where else. Or he's going to have this situation where they're just existing. And even on this, at face value, what he's saying is we just want these people to exist. We've already destroyed almost entirely the entire Gaza Strip so that no life can endure there. There is no freedom. There is no possibility to have a life. There is merely the chance to exist and not die. That is the best that you can get right now. And I'm talking long into the future because so much has been destroyed. Even if the war stopped today, if Benjamin Netanyahu woke up in the morning and had an epiphany and said, okay, boys, all of it stopped, IDF, everybody out, let's seal off the thing for now and get them some food, whatever they need, let's get all of it in, open the gates, let all of the trucks in, etc. It's going to be so many months and definitely years before there's even the possibility of having a semblance of a life in the Gaza Strip anymore. You realize that Israel systematically destroyed all but a couple of the hospitals, made them completely not even partially usable. Most of them have been razed to the ground. All the universities have been utterly destroyed. Most of the schools have been badly damaged or destroyed as well. The food, the markets, the farming areas, everything has just scorched earth. So it will take many years, if not decades, to bring it if the war stops today, but it's not going to. That's the level of possibility. We're still talking about this fantasy of having a military victory, oblivious to the fact that every day that Netanyahu goes down this, every day that we give the ammunition and the weapons to do this, just keeps moving back further, even the theoretical possibility where there could be any kind of a life in there for the Palestinian people. And listen to me carefully here. If you love Israel and if you only love Israel, listen to me. You will not have peace. You will not have security until everyone who lives there has peace and security. Don't take my word for it, but just use normal common sense and logic. You cannot kill a group of people and impress upon them so much pressure so that they only can exist and then think that they're just going to lay down whenever you want to and just, I don't know what they think. I mean, I don't know if you can finish the sentence where they'll just say, yes, we'll just lay down and be submissive to anything you say and we'll just exist in this tent until we die. I mean, that's all you're leaving them right now. If you want this war over to where Israel has a chance of success, and I want this more than you can imagine, but I want it for all the people who live there. And it can only be an all or none proposition. It's a fantasy. You're fooling yourself if you think that by force of arms, you can get to a point to where you destroy one group of people and then allow the other one to live in peace and harmony. It's just not going to happen. It's already so damaged. The Israeli reputation around the world has been so badly damaged because of these kinds of things, is that it's going to take generations to fix that too. Again, if the war ended tomorrow. But if it doesn't end tomorrow, that damage is going to continue to erode. And it's impossible to say what could happen. There's an infinite number of things that are possible, but most of them aren't good for Israel if they don't change the course quickly. And herein, the only actor that can do that is President Trump. The United States of America is the only one that has the power to compel Israel to start doing something that actually has a chance to succeed for itself, because left on their own, they're not going to do it. They have become just blindly obsessed with this military victory here that they think will succeed. If they don't kill everyone or literally shove them into the sea or into countries around or whatever, so that there are none left, and the only people that are left there are Israelis, it's not even theoretically possible. And I don't think it's even hypothetically possible that what I just described can happen. But it appears to me from the evidence that there are many in Israel in positions of authority that do think that is theoretically possible and seem to be moving in that direction. But they're going to be wrong. And the further they go down the road, folks, the more it's going to cause pain and agony, even for the Israeli people whom they claim to lead. That's just the truth of it. I just wanted to bring you up to date on that stuff because those things are happening even today. Those comments, some of them were made by Netanyahu earlier today. It's in the Washington Post. So we need to make sure you're aware of that. A lot of things going on, and we're going to continue to track this for you. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow on Daniel Davis Deep Dive.